Wake up, dead men. That's me. That's me talking to the three of you, not talking to our viewers. What's going on, everyone? We are, as you could probably guess by the first four words of this episode, talking about the new Benoit Blanc whodunnit from Rian Johnson. Aidan's here to join the panel for a special review. Just one movie tonight. I know we've been doubling up the last few weeks, but we wanted to give this one its due. We wanted to give this one the necessary time to unpack it. There's a lot to unravel. So let's get into it. Wake Up Dead Man, Benoit Blanc mystery. I'm not using the subtitle that Netflix used. Gentlemen, what do you guys think?
Aidan, why don't you go? You're
All
our
right, yeah,
guest.
that's our special guest. George gave me some lofty expectations to meet here. No, I mean, I think George, obviously we're working on a murder mystery of our own. This is a genre that we both love. So I think it's always going to be enjoyable to watch one of these, especially as Daniel Craig just gets to know this character and inhabit this character more and more. Um, they have both uh, like a physical style and the set and the costumes and all that, and then artistic aesthetic style beyond that with just the way that they look. Um, yeah, I do think this one was maybe not as complicated of a mystery as the first two have been. Um,
The
with
first, or the
the
second one, I would say was not that complicated. It was dumb.
it has been a while. Well, with the twin reveal is basically what I meant. Like I don't feel like there was a
Mhm.
comparable twist to that, or with the medication being swapped out. Uh,
No, that's true.
that being said, I did still really enjoy it. I think particularly the ending of the movie was very emotionally satisfying, and I think a little bit easier for people to swallow than destroying the Mona Lisa, like in Glass Onion. So, um, yeah, and I mean, of course, everyone's performance was just spot on as always. Yeah, let's hear from the other two people here, though. Doesn't have to be.
Well, I'll piggyback on that because I feel like I really enjoyed this one for its premise, like Knives Out, where there are a lot of different situations. Like you can guess a few of them, but which one is true? You know,
Mm.
that's the mystery. And also, there's the certain impossibility at a certain point, like what happened. I mean, at a certain point, I thought, the movie was
Impossible crime.
this is an impossible crime. Um, but I really, sorry, you got me distracted, George. But I really love the idea that, there were certain angles that it could have taken, but there was only one that's, correct in a certain way. It reminded me a lot of Agatha Christie stuff. Whereas Glass Onion, well, it was fun. The mystery aspect was kind of ruined by the reveal that everything was kind of just stupid, right? That was kind of the reveal, which was funny, but less satisfying on a rewatch. Whereas Knives Out, there are a lot of different things that can happen, and then there's the reveal, which I think is rather satisfying. This one, similar thing. And there's a wholesome ending similar to Knives Out, where instead of just blowing everything up, somebody that's good ends up with money and is going to use it in a good way. I mean, I guess in this one, it's more just he hides it in a similar way, but I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a fantastic one. I rate this, close to the original Knives Out. The second, as I've said, I have reservations about it. It's still a fun movie. It's still good, I would say, but it's, a step below just in terms of the mystery aspect.
Yeah, I think it, Max. I want to hear your thoughts in a second, but I just want to hop in there real quick at the end. Um, I think because I gave Glass Onion a 5 out of 5 on the first watch. I loved it. Um, I think it took Wake Up Dead Man for me to realize that it's a step down. I think Wake Up Dead Man is not a return to form because all three films have been exceptionally well made, um, with great writing, great performances. I'm not bashing any of them, um, but I think it took this film being closer to the first one in quality than Glass Onion for me to realize that Glass Onion was just a tick below Knives Out and now Wake Up Dead Man.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
I mean, I think where these movies really excel is sort of being products of when they're made. Thinking back to Knives Out, sort of the whole immigration and who belongs here in this sort of inherited space is sort of a central theme. You've got COVID, obviously, in Glass Onion, and then here it's faith and purpose in the face of, overwhelming odds and, the whole world basically saying, no, there's no, it's not worth it, right? And so I think that's where they stand out to me, and that's why I enjoy these films so much. It's not just the mystery, it's about what they say about the world that we're living in the moment that they're made, right? And that makes it difficult for these films to have a long life. And I think that's what makes Knives Out so exceptional, is that it has lived longer than Glass Onion ever did in my mind in terms of what it had to say. And I appreciate that, right? And I think Wake Up Dead Man is going to follow a similar path, that it says something more important, something more, maybe even more prescient than Glass Onion ever did.
yeah, I mean, I feel like Glass Onion is just too much of just a simple punchline
Yeah.
extended throughout an entire movie. And, it's kind of funny, but it's, like you said, it's kind of shallow. This one definitely has a broader, like, view of, the church and a cult of personality, the ideas of what comes with that, the ideas of what power is, and what good people really do, which is not abuse it and exploit it, and instead, speak from their heart and their graciousness and hide, I guess, a jewel inside of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, Ben, I'm gonna go back to something you said just in your opening thoughts about the layers to the mystery that we get here, um, and why I think this film compares so well to the first one. The first act of Knives Out, if you remember when uh, Detective Lieutenant Elliot, Trooper Wagner, and Blanc are interviewing each member of the Thrombey family, we sort of get these unreliable narrators and people telling the story of the night Harlan Thrombey died in different ways. They're similar, but we can get the understanding immediately. And Blanc even says it, that everyone can lie. And I think what we have in this church community in Wake Up Dead Man is another situation where there are unreliable narrators and people will remember things completely differently as they happen in the same event. I mean, take for example when Judd bursts into that private meeting, just hearing the end of it, and then we go back and understand what the full context was. I mean, everything Glenn Close discloses um, about Monsignor Wicks' uh, mother, right, coming into the church, basically made to look like the devil at the beginning of the film, or at the beginning of the story, and then when that same story is presented again at the end of the film, we're seeing it in a new light, literally and figuratively. So
Yeah, and
I
I mean,
think this movie really excels with setting us up and knocking us down, with not knowing what we don't know until we know it.
some of that stuff is expected, given that a lot of the characters are archetypes of very fanatical people. And even we have a narrator in Josh Connor's Father Judd that basically talks about this stuff, which is that, we got Andrew Scott's character that's fallen off, and all these people have their problems, and they're sort of burying them in this fanaticism. Um, and so I do think that it is it's interesting, but sorry, there was a point I was going to make there, and now I've forgotten it.
That happens to me literally every week.
I don't want
It's
to be
all right.
George. No, I
Start
don't want to be
talking,
George.
man.
No,
I
I'm gonna
can't.
make something up now. I'm gonna vengeance,
I
vengeance,
mean,
vindictiveness.
I'll
We
jump
must
in. I
have
mean, I think
vengeance.
one thing that this film struggles with is sort of balancing the ensemble cast. It doesn't do it as well as either of the first two films, I don't think. Even in Glass Onion, it felt like each character has served a purpose to get us to the admittedly shallow ending, but they all had their purpose. It felt like in Wake Up Dead Man, we could have removed a few characters and it probably wouldn't have made that much of a difference. They were great, I loved them, but they didn't have as much to do. This was much more focused on Josh O'Connor's Father Judd and Benoit Blanc, and for whatever reason, Mila Kunis. Um,
Yeah,
and
her
I
character
love
is
I
not
love Mila
there.
Kunis. I've loved many of her performances in her career. She is completely outacted in this movie by
yeah,
everyone she interacts.
Well, let me just piggyback on that, which is that I feel like Mila Kunis's character plays no part in this mystery. I mean, she's there, and but she's basically just repeating things. Like
in in this
she's like
like
Sigourney Weaver in Galaxy Quest. Like her entire job is just to repeat Benoit Blanc, or to be surprised or something like that, or to be annoyed.
We,
That is, I have two reservations. One of them is that, and then the other one is kind of like what Max said, which is I wouldn't say that the ensemble is not used correctly, but I feel like a lot of the mystery is solved too quickly in you just have the reveal with Cyrus and you have an entire the video is just too much of a Deus Ex Machina, like let's get this going. It's already a 2.5 hour movie, but I do feel like that takes away from the mystery. And there's a great movie here, like don't get me wrong, but I do feel like, that is not typical Agatha Christie fashion, which is you're just revealing too much too fast. It felt like too much of an information and like plot dump, where I felt like you could have organically found that, if you just didn't do that. I
yeah,
think that's reasonable. I think
yeah.
it's just too much.
And Ben, to piggyback off that, I thought the motives laid out in there kind of also laid things a little bit too plain, where he's saying he's going to denounce everyone. And the first one, like, oh, you're a surgeon, you've been drunk on the job. Absolutely, that's a reason to kill someone to cover that.
Sure.
The other ones, it's just what your dad would be embarrassed of you. We don't really know why. Like, correct me if
And
I'm wrong, but I don't remember anything about that woman's family.
I
And
can be convinced of that just because, like, we're talking about a very narcissistic person, who has ego problems. So I could see him being convinced, like, you need to disavow all of these people because, I mean, he's already just a crazy person, essentially.
yeah, no, what
But
I
it
was
was,
saying in that is essentially only Ned really has a motive for murder out there. He's like, I'm gonna denounce all of you, your secrets will be laid bare, and only Ned's secret is anything worth sharing. Like your dad would be ashamed of you, and you're not a good author anymore, and what you donated too much money and don't have enough faith to get healed is not. I don't think anyone would kill to cover that up. No, of course, if you're a religious fanatic and your work like faith is crumbling down, I understand that's a little bit different. But to me, that just laid it bare. Like, well, yes, of course, Ned would be the one who stabbed the priest then because he was the only one who really stood to lose something
I
material.
feel like that's somewhat related to what I'm talking about, which is it's too much of an info dump. If
Yeah,
he just said, I'm going to reveal your secrets, and we don't know what the secrets are, and we
yeah,
find out, recently because of Cyrus, most of them. Um, I feel like there could be anything. You don't know, and that's fine. You could reveal that later, but you have the tension. But we erase that by just dumping too much.
absolutely.
I th-
Um, yeah, go ahead, George.
I think just speaking of info dumping and exposition in this film, um, where this movie really shines, where Glass Onion did not, and perhaps this was a knock that I made against Glass Onion 3 years ago when it came out, and just sort of pushed it aside. Um, but the second act of Glass Onion gets way too bogged down in flashback.
Oh yeah, it's like
Yes.
45 minutes, isn't it?
It
Yeah, it's
just
a long
we
time.
go back to the beginning of Helen Brand's story, all the way back to when she first recruited Blanc, and then we're seeing everything play out from that new perspective. which is essential to telling that story. I get it. It was a creative choice, but like Knives Out, the first film, the flashback is like 10 minutes long.
And it's dependent on the time. I mean, personally, I'm a big fan of monk flashbacks where you see, a crime that could have been committed,
Mm.
but it could be wrong. Um, I know it's a cable show, it's from USA, but I still like it. Uh,
Um, but anyway, the point I'm trying to make about Glass Onion here is that we get that out of the way in the first act. We see literally the first half hour, 40 minutes of the movie is from Father Judd's perspective.
sorry, you mean Wake Up Dead Man, not Glass
Wake Up
Onion.
Dead Man,
Yeah,
excuse me.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's
Um,
it's it's much better. It's much better for the flow of the movie. You introduce
much better.
everything, and then it's like you get into the
And
story. And then they introduce like, I don't know, 30 minutes in after the Benoit Blanc is introduced, like, oh, this is how it's being narrated,
yeah, I
which I
thought that was
thought was
really
fine.
clever.
I thought that was lovely.
Um, and I think another thing this movie really does well, like the first film does, is acknowledges that Benoit Blanc is not the main character. The main character of these movies,
He's a detective.
yes, Benjamin. I don't know why you didn't make your name Ben Wa Blanc for this.
That
That's
would
too
be too
easy.
much.
Anyway, Marta Cabrera is the main character of the first film. Helen Brand is the main character of the second film. Father Judd is the main character of this film. And for the first time since the first film, in Wake Up Dead Man, we get to see Blanc's right hand in the investigation be that main character. Father Judd is our literally our first person narrator for the first 40 minutes of the movie. And then, like you said, Ben, Blanc just sort of wanders in and becomes part of the case,
Yeah,
which really, really works for the character. He doesn't need to be this knight in shining armor almost that sort of stepped in to save the day in Glass Onion.
No.
He's just there. He's along for the ride. He wants to help good people get good outcomes.
yeah, I would say it's a nice change from the first two, which is that,
So is his hair.
yes, it's a bit longer, it's a bit more scraggly. Um, but yeah, it's a nice change to have him be sort of just walking in, a friend of somebody else, not the main guy that's been telling the story. Though we do find out that he's telling it to Benoit Blanc, which makes sense with the lines like, I can't lie to you and this stuff. But
It feels when he's saying that in his
it
narration,
feels,
it feels like he's addressing the audience.
but he does say to you, to him, I can't remember what the words are. He does make like allusions to that. But I'd say it feels very organic versus the glass onion thing, which feels very much like it breaks up any suspense. And it's like, hey, this is a long reveal. Um, I would say Rian Johnson has had issues with it for the last two, just trying to reveal it too much. Glass Onion was an egregious one where it's like we have a flashback showing all this stuff. And then we have
Yeah.
this movie, which is pretty much great all the way through, except for me, the moment where, like I said, too much of a info dump where you're just learning a lot of the mystery. I mean, obviously not everything, but too much for my taste. I would like to learn about these people more like organically. I want the detective to find it rather than it being explained to them.
And in Knives Out and Wake Up Dead Man, we get that moment of catharsis in the climax of the film where the detective reveals how everything happened. And in Glass Onion, that's all in the flashback. And then the moment of catharsis is the disruptors all turning on Miles Braun.
Well, again, that's why I bring up Bunk and Psych and a lot of these USA detective shows because they have a similar premise. A lot of detective things have a similar premise. You have the big reveal at the end. However, if the buildup is too, like, not entertaining enough, and you do the interesting parts too fast, you kind of lose the suspense. You lose the entertainment of it. You want to be entertained throughout the entire mystery. You want to slowly learn and, get the pieces. But if there's a moment that's just too extended with, where you're learning a lot and then you go back to learning just a little bit, it's not, you kind of kill the rhythm of it. I would say that Monk and Psych, things like that, they're formulaic, but they have a great sense of like build it up and then reveal it. But you're not just like learning about it. And typically, even with those shows, you're learning about the key things during some fun break-in or whatnot. They're doing something rather than showing up somewhere and saying, "Yeah, I'll tell you everything. I have it all recorded." I love this movie. I love it. There were so many great moments, but that is just one that it doesn't kill it for me. I mean, it's a great movie, but that is a criminal sin, in my opinion, to just do that because so much else is slowly tugging along, and then you do that, and there's a great mystery there, but you're just sort of I don't know discombobulated by too much.
Yeah. I wonder if they had it kind of planned differently, but they were like looking at the script length and the runtime, and they're like,
It could be. I mean, it is a long movie, and you do want to cut things sometimes, but
The
it's
first film's what, 210? Second one's like about this one, 220.
yeah, and the
That's right.
second one has no business being that long.
Yeah.
This one
uh,
has a lot to it, and they have a lot of like emotional and philosophical moments.
hmm.
So maybe they felt it's hard to cut some of those because I feel like that is a great meat of this movie, which is it's a mystery, but it has a lot of heart to it. And I don't want to take away from that. Like I'm criticizing this one moment, and yeah, sure, it kills the rhythm for me of the movie, but then it it picks up again. So it's not like this ruins the movie. It's
It,
just one thing that I'm picking out that I think they could have done better.
it's funny that you talk about one moment that throws off the rhythm of the movie, and you talk about how much heart the movie has. The phone call, which
Yeah.
is probably the best scene of the movie. It's such a wild tonal shift because we're laughing our asses off at the interactions between Blanc and Father Judd seconds before. And then he takes this phone call, and suddenly everything turns on a dime, and he's this good priest, this good person who is just making this one connection with one ordinary person and realizing how special each of their relationships with each other and with their faith really is. And that I mean, first of all, the performances in that scene, the acting's off the charts, absolutely breathtaking deliveries and uh, like facial performances, et cetera, et cetera. Um, but I mean that scene makes the movie. It shows us who Father Judd is. It shows us what really matters the most to him, what's most important to him, and having Blanc in the room for that or part of it um, shows Blanc exactly who he's working with and exactly what kind of faith leader Father Judd is and what his ultimate, I guess, goal for the church and his role in the church could stand to be. And I think that helps Blanc sort of d- develop his relationship with the case itself and with Judd. Um, it progresses a lot further in that scene, just because it's even though it's an aside from the mystery, it's
Well,
still essential
yeah, I want I
to
want
the
to say I feel like it's not an aside. I would never cut that because I feel like it's essential to
I
the
never
movie.
said it was superfluous. It's just it's not essential to the actual mystery.
Sure, but that's where I get like it's a mystery, but it has a lot of heart, which, like I
Yeah,
said, and it that is kind
that's what
of
made me think of it.
it is very much, parallel to like Martha, confessing to him and saying all this stuff. He is a good priest. He's good-hearted, and some might say he's better than them, but he would never say that because he's there for them. That's what makes him so good. Um, and I would say that that is like central to the movie. I would not cut that out. I think that is a beautiful way to, break it up, and you have this mystery and you have this suspense, and then you get to this real heart of it, which is that this guy just wants to be a priest. That's the entire reason he's helping with the mystery, is because he just wants to help people. He doesn't want to be the victim of this. He doesn't want to be the suspect who just wants to help people. And that was the entire reason that he was a suspect in the first place, which is because he didn't like that Wicks was such a selfish person, which obviously he was. So this is, I mean, that was one of the best parts of the movie for me because it showed his true heart. It showed, what he really wanted to do, which is not solve a mystery. Like you said, this is not Benoit Blanc's film. This is kind of Father Judd's film.
Yeah. We're nodding for anyone who's audio only. Uh,
Yeah. Ben, you brought up Martha's confession. Glenn Close heavily, heavily involved in the murder and the cover up, and the second death, if you will, of Dr. Nat. What do you guys make of Martha's sort of position in the church and in the film?
I think for me, I kind of thought she was going to have something to do with it because of how deeply involved she was with the parish.
And
Um,
with Wicks personally.
yeah, yeah. And I'm sorry, it wasn't clear. Was she in a relationship with Sam or were they?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
They were
Okay, that's what I thought.
Sweet Samson.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, like I figured she was going to be involved in it somehow. But I thought, like most things Rian Johnson does in this universe, like the way that they got there was so yeah, I thought particularly the with Blanc kind of f pretending that he couldn't figure it out to give her the opportunity to confess on her own. I think once he saw that she was dying, I think was I guess it's like a deathbed confession type thing. So you could kind of diminish it from that perspective. Um, but I thought it was cool to kind of show her as a mastermind for a little bit, in terms of kind of outsmarting or outplanning these other people she was working with, or I guess just Nat, because she certainly didn't plan on Samson not surviving. But yeah, I thought that was a beautiful moment. Um,
Yeah, because she's sort of like she's a mastermind, but also a victim
yeah,
of just ideology almost.
Yeah, and Blanc sort of taking that step back is something he probably wouldn't have done in the first two films, right? Like that's part of his character development over the course of these three
I
films.
feel,
Like, and I think it's important that he recognized that this was a moment for her to go in peace.
yeah,
And it's
I
also
think
something
it's
he learned from Father Judd.
But I think I just want to say that the first two films have a lot of people that are,
Yeah.
yeah, they're kind of, nice at some points, but all of them are kind of despicable. This film, you have a lot of people that you kind of just feel sorry for.
Mhm.
There's a lot of victims in a certain way, just victims of ideology and telling you, I can cure you and this and that. And they become worse and worse because the people that they're trying, they're praying to essentially are giving them false hope or false promises, false guidance. And that is probably, the biggest one. It's like this guy is clearly a smart guy, and used to have a family, but now he's just vindictive and now dead, I guess, in the film. But you feel bad for everyone. Glenn Close's character, you
Mhm.
feel bad for her because she was sort of like indoctrinated essentially at a young age to believing this, for essentially love and affection from this father figure that wasn't her father. And so I feel like that sort of depth, especially compared to Glass Onion, there were some complicated characters, but there were way too many dumb characters that you can't really feel anything for. This one has a lot of human nature, you know. Probably one of the best things of Agatha Christie is that these villains are typically not somebody that's vindictive, but that they're doing it for some reason, twisted, whatever, but that they have some logical reason in their mind or emotional reason. And Glass Onion, for me, it just didn't feel like anything. Knives Out, the guy is crass, Chris Evans' character, but you get the reason. There's a great build up. This one has a similar thing,
I
where
want to
everyone just feels like they're a human and they could do it because of that.
I want to draw a connection, Ben, between what you just said and what Aidan said earlier, and that's the the good nature of these people compared with the ensemble in Glass Onion and the ensemble in Knives Out. And Ben, I think you might have just touched on the point that I'm about to make at the end of what you just said. Um, but the idea that you feel sorry for these people because they do, most of them seem to be good people. And and Aidan, what you had said earlier was that this in this ensemble, a lot of them didn't really feel like they had something to lose beyond Dr. Nat. And in the first two films, the Thrombey family all had the fortune to lose. And in Glass Onion, all of the disruptors had some financial or political or scientific, like some career based motivation to back Miles Braun and to go against Andy and then Helen Brand.
Hmm.
Um, in this film, these characters, a lot of them have redeeming qualities in a way that's not present in the ensemble of Knives Out and Glass Onion. And I think that, Ben, to your point, is what makes us as the audience able to feel a little bit more sympathy for these characters in their positions in the film.
And even Nat, like he's kind of one of the villains of the film, but also he's kind of essentially made the villain. We see his wife leave him, and we see that Wicks makes him a worse and worse person, vindictive and vengeful and violent, and somebody abuses that,
Would you
for
guys
their own reason, for their own vindictiveness, for whatever. It's just this spiral, and I think that is really human. Um, I mean, Nat at the end, like he kills Samson because he thinks that the diamond and the wealth bring back his wife and child. The entire time Wicks is, preaching about how she's, a witch and a harlot and all this stuff, but he still loves her and he's trying to like manage these two deviant thoughts,
Hmm.
or sorry, dividing thoughts, which is like the vengefulness and, how do I get them back?
Mhm.
He's come to this destructive conclusion.
would you guys consider Monsignor Jefferson Wicks a victim in this film?
In a way, because he was raised with, the idea that his mom was a harlot and all this stuff. I mean, I think that everyone is very human and very much a victim of their circumstance. I mean, how could he not become a priest and be this good man, this righteous man, because of what everyone talked about his mother? This is a very sympathetic film, I would say. And I use the word human because this feels very real. These aren't victims, or villains like you would find in probably the first two films. These are pretty much, real archetypes of real people, people that, love and also hate, that they don't really have a place in that sort of good, evil hero villain sort of dichotomy.
Yeah. Since she's come up, this is it was bugging me the whole time during the movie. I really thought they were going to explain it. This is definitely a Catholic church, right?
Yeah, yeah. No, they did bring it up. They, I think when Benoit Blanc came in,
Um,
he asked him, "Oh, you're not Catholic, are you?"
well, that wasn't what was bugging me. I just wanted to clarify to confirm. So
Yeah.
priests were supposed to be celibate. So then, how was Wicks's grandfather a priest who had a daughter and everyone was just fine with it?
I think you know.
Like, I know the patriarchy and double standards and all that, but it's such a scandal for Wicks. I really thought that was going to get addressed because, or
That's
at least that Wicks would have talked about the shame of his father, or his grandfather, sorry, fathering a child out of wedlock. Um, yeah, I don't know. For it to not be addressed at all, uh, I,
well, earlier this year we got a detective story in like one of those strip mall Protestant churches, and that movie sucked. So going gothic upstate New York Catholic church. I don't know too much about the religion of it all, but
I'm forgetting, didn't they address some of this and that like the great grandfather established the church after I can't remember what his backstory was though.
yeah,
Like
I
he
think
wasn't always a priest.
okay,
So I think they may have established that, and then his mother obviously wouldn't have been, she's a harlot, so she
yeah,
had a son. So I think they did address it maybe briefly. I can't remember what the story was, but I think they did because it seemed like he wasn't always a priest and he was the one that established the church.
okay. I will need to rewatch the first couple.
Don't quote me on that, but I think they did. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
no, I
sure.
want. I've been trying to poke around online to find it and haven't seen it addressed, but that was yeah, I couldn't not address that during this conversation.
I'm pretty sure it was when they were talking first about the harlot,
Okay,
where they talked about the origin of the church and talking about the great grandfather
okay.
of Monsieur Wicks.
Monsignor.
Monsignor,
Father
sorry,
Monsignor.
Monsignor. Why is it? God, stupid person.
I liked seeing Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah.
He completely stole the two scenes he was in. And
Yeah, I mean he's there. He's there for like 3 minutes.
when
Love him.
I well,
Hey, he's from the area. He's from Washington D.C., St. Albans, and alum.
Yep.
The
um
tax guy as well.
at the
Yep.
at the beginning of the episode, Aidan brought up the murder mystery that we're writing. When I wrote my first draft of another murder mystery film that we're kind of cannibalizing for the one that we're writing now. And
Cannibalizing? Hold on. Should we be writing a report? Maybe I've got to write a murder mystery about you guys.
don't that's the sequel. But when I was writing my first attempt at a murder mystery, Jeffrey Wright was who I had in mind for the detective. So seeing him in a murder mystery, especially a Benoit Blanc mystery,
Let
he,
me know. I don't think I could get you him, but I've got a friend whose father is friends with him. So
so you're tight.
basically, I could tell him to send you a happy birthday. Um, one birthday, just in your
Done.
entire life. But I could probably get that.
Please.
Yeah,
I can also get it on Cameo probably.
He might be on there. I don't know.
I love Jeffrey Wright.
Great actor.
Open your eyes. Because from the Batman.
Oh
oh yeah.
yeah.
Yes. He was in that.
Yeah. All
Las
right.
Ratas.
Last thing before we wrap up. If you could cast any one actor in a future Benoit Blanc mystery, who would you cast?
Sid Caesar.
Wolf Blitzer.
Um,
Take
Wait,
this
you didn't say
seriously, I
live.
beg you.
Did you say living? I didn't hear that.
Any living actor in a potential fourth installment.
Dick Van Dyke.
Yes, that's a great answer.
that would be a great one. Um, yeah, let's see. Who do I want to David Schwimmer.
Oh God.
Well, hey guys.
It's the murder mysteries who killed the dinosaurs.
Pivot to a different case.
I won't even try David Schwimmer. Friends impressions are just I feel like it's impossible.
Yeah.
Or
Um,
would you try it? You do it on one of your TikToks, okay?
yeah.
David Schwimmer.
I'll get David Schwimmer in there. That's a promise. Yeah. If you're interested in knowing who I would cast in a potential installment, I will put it in the description of this video because
What?
I already came up with a whole fucking scenario. And if Rian Johnson doesn't
You
do
gonna
it,
clickbait your own castmates like
no,
this? Come on.
I think the first person that I thought to cast is David Johnson. It's a serious answer, not like not like your answers, guys.
You really liked the long walk, huh?
I
My
really,
answer was very serious.
I
Sid
really like.
Caesar would be hilarious.
You're right. I don't know. I really liked him in the long walk, and I've liked like Alien Romulus. He was great in that too. He's got a lot of range. I think he could fit really well in one of these. And I would set it in a like high end restaurant too. That's my
That's a good one.
that's my locale.
Sure.
All right. Wake Up Dead Man unfortunately is no longer playing in movie theaters, but it is streaming on Netflix. So find the biggest TV you can and stream it on that in the dark. Try to recreate the theatrical experience for you. In the meantime, check it out. Let us know what you think. Next week, what are you doing?
I'm trying to make it more interesting for our viewers.
Aidan shouted out our audio only audience not 15 minutes ago.
Do we have that? We have one of those?
Next week, we are traveling back to Pandora for the first time in 3 years for
Big Jim.
Avatar Fire and Ash with my main man, Jim Cameron. And yes, I have changed my opinion of him because he is so ardently anti-AI in filmmaking.
And also he's sick and awesome and cool.
And he's revolutionized Jesus movie
He's
making.
revolutionized Jesus. You heard it here.
You heard it from Father
Jim
Judd
Cameron.
first. All right. We will see you for Avatar Fire and Ash next week. In the meantime, support your local movie theater, ban AI in filmmaking, and watch some good movies. We will see you next week. Have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.